our next guest, says mainly EU national lorry drivers simply won't bother with driving in the UK given the extra uncertainty. Rod McKenzie, Managing Director of Public Policy at the Road Haulage Association, joins us now. Rod, good morning. Thanks for being with us. Has anything changed since November in terms of that NAO report about widespread disruption?
Well, I suppose I'd be very uncharitable to say nothing has changed. But if you talk to the people who are having to deal with the new border or try and get their heads around the new border arrangement, their impression is, frankly, very little has changed. You know, the truth is, the cold, brutal truth is we are not ready for January the 1st and a new border and customs system. Nowhere near.
Why then, Rod, is the government not listening to that?
Well, we've been in lots of meetings with the government, Caroline, and there's a lot of nodding of heads, and yes, we understand and we'll take this away in the way that civil servants and ministers do. But businesses need reassurance. Businesses need evidence. That's how business runs, and it's not how, sadly, the government has run this whole process. So there are three big problems. One, the IT system. Unproven. We don't know if it works. We don't know if the different bits will talk to each other. We haven't seen it. We don't know. Secondly, the border infrastructure system, which, if you put it in crude terms, are things like, customs points, checkpoints, and indeed lorry parks, which were swiftly being built in a rather haphazard way around the country, so that the government could avoid TV pictures of big queues at Dover because you corral them somewhere else. We don't know if they're up and running. And thirdly, and perhaps arguably most importantly, there simply aren't enough customs agents to process the 250 million new forms of red tape that will have to be gone through every year by traders working internationally with the EU in future.
Now, Rod, we're talking about this, I suppose, in the light of the potential for a no deal. But would a deal actually make much difference? Because there are going to be complications anyway, aren't there?
Yeah, a deal or no deal makes very, very little difference, Roger. And when you think about it, the only thing that is different, effectively, is tariffs and quotas, which you would get with a no deal, which you wouldn't get with a deal. But the vast majority of the paperwork I've just described will apply, deal or no deal. And you need years, really, to set up such a complicated IT system. The government has had 4 years warning because that's how long ago the Brexit vote was, but they just have wasted time, frankly, and we're now looking down the barrel. We're now talking about, we'll carry on talking up to New Year's Eve. That is horrific for the businesses and traders that are trying to cope with this.
Horrific. Wow. Look, the Conservatives, I'm sure, and if you were speaking to MPs now, they would say, look, this is temporary disruption. OK, there is going to be some pain, but we can overcome it. There's also going to be some leeway on both sides around this disruption. Everyone understands that it's new. What do you say to that idea that it's temporary and we can get over it?
Well, I think it's not temporary. I think it's probably short to medium term. So we're in for a difficult year. But why would you choose to have a difficult year for international trade when you're still dealing with COVID and the economic pressure that has put on our economy and indeed the EU's economy? The sensible, rational person would say, look, we need either we need a deal or we need more time for negotiations, or what we believe is a long implementation period. Effectively an extension to the transition period to allow businesses more time to prepare with a degree of certainty that they know what's going on, and to ease into this new world of customs and borders over a 6-month period rather than plunge blindly over the edge of a cliff on the 1st of January.
Well, Rod, I mean, the papers you'll have seen yesterday were full of suggestions about how we might experience this in terms of the supermarket. Supermarket shortages is what we were hearing of, shortages of various things. Other people pointing and saying, hang on a second, fruit comes from South America, vegetables come from North Africa, that it's actually not going to be affected by that. What's your reading?
Well, good point. And I think the first thing to stress here, Roger, is that we are not going to run out of food in the supermarkets. and any scare stories that say that are completely wrong. But what I think we will see in the supply chain in general is fits and starts, and we'll see gaps in the supermarket shelves. So whereas before you might have a tremendous array of whatever it was that you particularly like, 15, 16 different choices, you may see gaps, and there may only be 5 or 6 choices or whatever. So it's a pretty much in that way it's a first world problem. But I think perhaps more seriously, factory lines which are dependent on just-in-time deliveries may see those just-in-time deliveries not arrive, which potentially means that factory lines would stop as a result of that. So it will be a different world. It would look different. We would notice the difference, but we're not all going to sort of starve to death in a third world hell.
Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.